Eagles lay an absolute egg in a tie against the Bengals. Carson Wentz continues to struggle. The Phil's season ends prematurely, and our stars of the week. All that and more coming up on a packed Sports Talk Philadelphia.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
So this is one of those games we're going to remember for a long time as Eagles fans, I think. A 23-23 tie with the Bengals of all teams. What started with a first possession interception kind of set the tone for the rest of an ugly game. Obviously very disappointing, but at this point, I don't even know if disappointing is the right word. Is this a bad football team? Give me your impressions on this game. Let's start with Tyler, because Tyler is wearing black in symbolism.
Not just black on black, because it's just customary at a funeral, because the Eagles season is dead. I've never seen anything. I'm usually a stats guy. I don't usually go by feelings or opinion or something like that, because I think numbers don't lie, or opinions and feelings can. However, I have never seen such I can't even say the words to describe how soft of a move it was to punt with 19 seconds left in overtime. Obviously, the penalties are the reason for that loss in overtime, and we could talk about how they got to that point against a team that just had the number one pick in the draft last year and barely won a couple games. I mean, Herbig getting that holding penalty on the beautiful dime from Wentz to Ertz, getting them into field goal range early in overtime was a killer, and obviously Pryor with the false start on the field goal put them out of field goal range. We all accept that. But the fact that on 4th and long, you have more trust, essentially, you think there's a better chance that Joe Burrow in his 3rd career game has a chance of driving down the field and getting them into scoring position, as opposed to your guy, Carson Wentz, who you've had for years. And your offense overall, because kicking the field goal is just as good as kicking a punt. I don't think it's going to do anything. But the fact that you don't give your offense at least a chance and you just rather tie instead of lose, it was disgusting to watch.
Yeah, I'm usually very optimistic on the Eagles, but this season to me is pretty much over right now. I mean, you look at it, I count this as a loss. We've lost to pretty much 2 of the worst teams in the NFL. You've got the Redskins and the Bengals, 2 very inexperienced teams. The Eagles, the scary thing is a lot of the Eagles' main guys are veterans, and they're in their 30s, and we're playing like we're a young team that's inexperienced, and this should not be happening. I mean, it's going to be scary to see what happens this Sunday night against the 49ers. I mean, you got Jimmy Garoppolo coming back, probably George Kittle coming back. I mean, it's not looking good for the Birds. Carson Wentz, again, struggled. Not looking good with him. You just got to start looking at changes for the Eagles.
This was a day that was just dismal from top to bottom.
As someone that's not an Eagles fan, I don't think the sky's falling, because I know optimism is hard to listen in this city, especially when the teams aren't doing so well, but they're a half a game out of first place in the division. Half a game, and they haven't won a game.
The NFC Beast, baby.
The NFC Beast, whatever you want to call it. That division stinks. It's happened, the last 2 years? The Eagles looked kind of flat, but they somehow pull something out of their you-know-what, and they find a way into the playoffs. I could see the same thing. Wentz, he's having some early season struggles. I don't know what it is. I don't think he knows what it is. I don't think anyone knows what it is. But I wouldn't say this Eagles team is dead just yet. Maybe in like a few more weeks if this continues, yeah. And, you look, they have the toughest remaining schedule in terms of strength of schedule out of all the teams in NFL. So it's not like it's going to get easier. You had 2 cupcake games against the Washington football team, a team that doesn't even have a name, and the Bengals, and you lose and you tie. And kind of getting to Doug Peterson, everyone says he's this fearless coach. He even wrote a book called Fearless, and he's punting to secure a tie. Like, what are you doing? Like, what is that?
Doug Peterson literally in 2017 set the record for the amount of times the team has gone for it on fourth down. He was 17 for 26 with 29 total attempts. He was rewriting football, basically. Teams followed him. Jim Harbaugh basically admits to following him on his fourth down strategy because you have a better chance of stopping if you have a confident defense, stopping them in a better field position as opposed to going for it and trusting your offense. I don't understand where this came from, and I think it comes down to Wentz. Something has to be wrong. I think right now he is at best a game manager. I mean, 29 for 47, a QBR of 49.1. It is atrocious. Whether he's fighting through an injury, I don't know, because he had 65 rushing yards and a touchdown. I mean, the game-tying touchdown that he rushed for shows that he still has that in him. He still has big play opportunities. However, he can't put it together for a full game, and I don't know what it is about him, but I don't think anyone knows but him, like Austin said.
And here's the thing. If it is an injury, I mean, here we go again. This guy just, they say availability is the best ability. Yep. You could be the greatest player in the world, but if you're not on the field, what good are you to a team? And you look at his play, I mean, that dime to Miles Sanders wide open, overthrew him. That would have shifted momentum. And on that false start on the field goal, you're in an empty stadium. How do you not know the snap count? What is going on?
Yeah, like Doug Peterson said after the game, they're just not disciplined right now. I mean, they look like they're inexperienced and they're not disciplined at all. It's atrocious to watch. I mean, they got to clean this up or it's going to go, like you said, Austin, they got a couple more games of this and then the season's going to be done.
Yeah, and that decision to punt, I don't get it. I don't know why you wouldn't go for it. And even I can see why he wouldn't want to go for a field goal in that situation because maybe he's not going to make it that far. But I would just try to make a 12-yard throw and at least push the Bengals. If you don't make the first down, you at least push Joe Burrow as a rookie and a team full of scrubs further back. And then you have to have some confidence in your team to be able to do that. And I don't know if Doug is the blame for that, or if Doug just really doesn't have confidence in Carson to run this offense and make those big plays anymore. I don't know who you blame here. Who gets the brunt of the blame here to you guys?
I think it's Peterson because it's one thing. Yeah, Wentz is having struggles, and if you don't believe in your offense, that's okay. That's one thing. However, it is literally a coin flip, basically. They're right at midfield, maybe a difference of 5 to 10 yards. You're giving everyone the same exact opportunity. I just don't get it, especially when your defense has been playing so well against the Bengals. I mean, Darius Slay had a phenomenal game, 7 solo tackles and 1 pass deflection. Robbie Coleman in overtime made what I thought was going to be the play of the game on that deflection, recovering on Tyler Boyd on a 20-yard out on a beautiful dime from Burrow, gets away with it. Mills had 1.5 sacks and 5 tackles, and then Graham and Barnett both had 2 sacks each. I mean, the defense was phenomenal throughout. So not trusting them for 19 seconds against a rookie quarterback who is having probably one of his best games of the season, but it's only his 3rd game. Who knows if he can even lead the drive yet? That could have been a pick 6 if you go for it as well. You don't know what would have happened.
Here's the thing. I think the end of overtime, you can put that on Doug Peterson. I mean, okay, I get it. It's a 64-yard field goal that would have tied for the longest field goal in NFL history. And like you said, why not just do it the 12-yard throw, a little chunk play? But I think the overall game, you look at the game in totality, like just some of these throws by Wentz were looking good. I don't think you can squarely put it on Doug. I think both have a share of it. I mean, maybe 60-40 Wentz. I mean, that decision to punt is the most mind-boggling thing I've ever seen in my life. Ever seen. And I've seen some very bad coaching teams with the Panthers. That decision is one of the worst things I've ever seen. I think it goes around a lot, and especially the linebackers, again, can't cover a soul. They got to fix that too. And here's the thing. They had an opportunity to draft a pretty good linebacker in the 2nd round, but they drafted a gadget player, what he is now.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tyler. I mean, Doug Peterson's most to blame for this. I mean, his play calling for now the 3rd week in a row is atrocious. I mean, you look at Miles Sanders this game was getting 5.5 yards per carry. He doesn't even have above 20 carries for the whole game. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, how you're not feeding Miles Sanders the ball at the end of that game is beyond me. To me, that was the biggest mistake of this game, is not giving Miles Sanders the ball.
That's not the first time Doug has refused to use running.
It happened last week. It was the same exact thing. He had
I'm
he had
talking years ago.
4.8 yards per attempt last week. Now he has 5.3 yards per attempt, less attempts.
Yep.
I think what they should do, and obviously I'm no football guru, but you look at what they did when they won the Super Bowl. They relied a lot on the run and took deep shots down the field. Why not do the same? I think there were maybe 2-3 plays, there pass interference down the field that moves you up 20, 30 yards. You don't have to have a perfect throw, but you saw, I think it was Hightower. He was interfered with. I think it was in overtime. And that moved them right to midfield from like the 30-yard line. Like, that's a chunk play right there, and you didn't even do anything.
You don't have right now. They are still weak. I mean, and losing Goddard in this game, I think, is a huge, huge factor. It was great to see Ertz back to himself, 7 catches, 70 yards, but you're pretty much without all your big receiving wide receivers. Whether you're talking about Alshon, Deshaun Jackson, even though he was a little guy, he does have great hands, some of the best hands on the team. So all you have are these quick guys, Arcega-Whiteside, Ward. Let them run deep. Exactly what I'm saying, Austin. Get out the congestion, make them respected so that the safeties have to come back and you can't send the house every time. And you'll have the A gap, the B gap open and available, especially because, the offensive line is a huge factor because of the penalties, but they weren't giving people through the lane. Whenever they actually respected the snap count and didn't have a penalty, they were holding their own.
Yeah, this team to me just needs to get healthy. I mean, you look at their wide receivers now, and our starters for this week are probably going to be Greg Ward, and our 5th and 6th round pick is probably going to be our starting receivers this week. And now we have Goddard out, which is a big blow to us. I mean, it's the injury bug that catches us again this year. I mean, it's really frustrating to see. It seems like it's every game. I mean, Deshaun Jackson can't even run a route and get a catch without getting hurt for his hammy. I mean, every time that guy gets touched, he's hurt. So, I don't know. Alshon needs to get back. Everyone needs to get back.
They're the Yankees of the NFL.
And there are a lot of questions with this team. I even think you can throw Howie in the discussion there with the makeup of this team generally is just not nearly as good as I think we all kind of anticipated. But yeah, Wentz going 29 for 47, 61%, only 225 yards. He did have a rushing touchdown and one to Greg Ward, who Greg Ward might be the best receiver on this team right now. But
the best quarterback on the team too.
Yeah, he could be.
Houston legend.
Right now, is Carson Wentz to you guys one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL? Like I would say arguably top 3 worst quarterbacks in the league. I don't know anybody that I would not take over Wentz right now. Maybe Dwayne Haskins, but what do you guys think about that?
Well, his QBR shows it. I mean, it's the lowest in the NFL out of all 32 teams. I mean, he's been playing awful. I mean, he's got 7 turnovers now. I mean, I think he's got 6 turnovers now. He's had 7 all of last season. I mean, 6 through 3 games. I mean, that's embarrassing. I mean, you can't be giving the ball up this much. I mean, he got lucky in this past game. I think he had 1 or 2 fumbles that the offensive line jumped on. I mean, so he should have had even more. So Wentz has got to start protecting the ball, and to me, that's probably one of the biggest mistakes he's made so far this season is not protecting the ball.
QBR, yeah, it puts him at dead last. Pro Football Focus, who just analytically watches these players as opposed to just going off the stats, has him as the 2nd worst now because Fitzpatrick passed him for 3rd worst. The only person below him is Kirk Cousins. So just anything you look at, whether you're looking at just the pure numbers, whether you're looking at the analytic numbers, or whether you're looking at coaches watching him, he's one of the worst in football right now. And I think we all agree that if he turns it on this season, he could finish the season within the top 10 of quarterbacks. He has that arsenal. Whether he has that chemistry with the guys, whether he has that in his system or with the injury. Because I just think that falling off a cliff like this, there has to be something nagging at him or something like that. I can't put my thumb on anything else it could be. But right now he's, I think, the worst quarterback in football.
It has to be mental. You're absolutely right about that, I think.
He is one of the worst quarterbacks, maybe better than Dwayne Haskins, maybe better than Darnold, but I think Darnold is in an all-time bad situation with the Jets. Listen, I said it last week. I said he was a bit overrated. I mean, now I think he just flat out stinks. Like, again, he has physical tools. You see what he did on his legs for the touchdown. He's got the body frame. He's tall. He can throw it deep. But the resistance to throw it deep, I don't know if that's play calls or if it's just confidence issues. He can do it. I just think it's just between the ears for him.
it's just another. It's so Philadelphia to have a guy just seem to forget how to throw. Like it's like Markelle Fultz.
Yeah.
How to shoot the ball. It only happens to Philadelphia teams. Obviously, a big game coming up Sunday Night Football against the 49ers. I don't know if Garoppolo is going to be back for that one, but we'll see.
If he's not, I mean, if he's not, and they lose to Nick Mullins, and I know
Mullins played pretty well.
Okay. He played Giants. He played a JV team essentially.
Went up against the Eagles.
The Giants.
Yeah, that's true.
So give me your guys' quick reactions on this game. How do you feel about this? I'm gonna say I called the Bengals loss. I was the only one to call that. I don't think they're that much better, but I do think that this game is a classic trap game. I think they actually could pull out a win here, but we'll see. What do you guys think?
They always seem to win when they're not supposed to. So I would not be shocked if they beat the Niners. Now a lot of that depends on who's going to be back for the Niners. And that you find that out Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Whether Kittle's back, Garoppolo's back, I think Sherman's on IR, so I don't think he's going to be playing.
Yeah, he's not.
A few other guys. I mean, they're severely banged up, and if they field the team that they had, on Sunday against the Giants, I don't see the Eagles losing to them because that is just they're too talented to lose to a team like that, and they're too well coached or supposedly well coached.
I look at it if Jimmy Garoppolo and George Kittle come back, it's not going to be good for the Eagles. I'm looking at a score like 32-10 if they're playing. But like you said, Austin, maybe if Nick Mullins is playing, they have a better chance. But it would be 2020 Eagles to win this game. But for me, I just don't see them winning this one.
I think even before I saw both what the Eagles did and what the 49ers did, and if it was the complete skeleton of a roster that they have now without Bosa, without Mostert, and without obvious guys like Garoppolo and Kittle. But they were able to, I thought they would just be able to run through the Giants. The Giants have one of the worst run defenses in football, and McKinnon has shown some great stuff. He still had a great game, but Mullins being able to pull out 325 yards was just so unheard of. The team still looked like a force, and it's because of their coaching, and that's just the difference. I think they're going to get out-coached badly. I still think it'll be an entertaining game just because of the run of Sunday Night Football has been good lately, but I still think it becomes a 32-10 game all to the 49ers.
I think Shanahan can coach circles around Schwartz. I mean, Schwartz he needs to fire that sticks defense into the sun because there was that one play, I think it was like Giovanni Bernard. It was like 3rd and a mile, and he just went for the first down untouched. It was just like, I can't believe that happened.
Right. Well, that was Eagles talk. We're going to segue real quick into the Phillies' disappointing end of the season. Another late season collapse, finishing 1-7 for their final 8 games. They finished the season 28-32. Guys, give me your quick recap of the season. How do you feel? I guess we'll start with Caleb.
The season was complete failure. I mean, you got added playoff teams into this, and you still didn't make the playoffs. Complete embarrassment again. If I was Bryce Harper, I would walk in to the John Middleton and tell him that Matt Klentak needs to go. I mean, if that guy is back as a general manager for the Phillies next season, that's a complete disgrace. I mean, his track record has shown that he's not a good GM. He hasn't filled the holes the Phillies need, and it's ultimately why they didn't make the playoffs this year.
I'm not big on the Klentak hate for this. I mean, I think that he's obviously not one of the best GMs in baseball. However, besides the bullpen, I mean, they really were a full roster. They completed one of the best offenses, 1 through 9, when healthy. I think it was more just I was expecting more from Joe Girardi was the one thing. My biggest overall hype of him was that he knows how to get people into a season where baseball is just not a rah-rah sport, a game day sport like football is, obviously. But for a 60-game season, a 60-game sprint where anything could happen, I expected what the Phillies were hoping to do to be more what like the San Diego Padres and Miami Marlins are doing, just to kind of go against the odds. They never got really affected by coronavirus. They only had 2 times that it was against them, so they never really had any cases. So they were very lucky in that fashion. But there were only 2 guys that actually wanted to play this season late. Harper was 7 for 21 with 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, a 1.232 OPS. He was ready for the big moment and to try and have that revenge against the Nationals. And then Andrew McCutchen, who has done it for his whole career when October comes around, 9 for 25, 2 home runs, 18 total bases, over a 1 OPS. Nola on short rest. I mean, it's tough against the Rays, but the Nationals and the Rays both didn't care about these last series. The Rays had the number 1 seed locked up. The Nationals were still in their hangover of the championship. They don't care about this season. And yet they could only manage 1 win. It was a disgrace.
I agree with Tyler. I mean, I think Klentak, he's getting a little unwarranted hate. I mean, he got Harper, he got Didi, he got Wheeler, he got, all these guys, which on paper they all looked really good. It's just the bullpen was a problem. And like for a year this year, when the trade deadline came around, not a lot of teams were really buying or selling. They were kind of just in this purgatory of they don't know what to do. So like no one big's really going to be made available. I mean, at the time, Workman looked good in Boston, and then he got the Philly, and he looked like a single A pitcher. I think it's just a little unlucky, and I hate putting things up as an excuse because of coronavirus, but I think because everyone had the same hand, but I think you got to really judge it on a full 162. See what a real trade deadline would look like, what Klentak would do with a team that would be quote unquote contending, and see what happens from there. So I would give him 1 more year. If they don't make the playoffs next year, can them.
Plus, I just want to talk on something that Austin just said. It feels like forever ago that the trade deadline came and went, and there weren't a lot of big deals, but the only teams that you really saw make those moves were the teams that were financially beneficial. Now, there are a lot of teams that were buying and selling. However, with no fans in attendance this year, I think it was a huge factor. I don't know about the Philadelphia ownership, but I know for a fact that the Yankees ownership, just for an example, was not willing to sign any big contracts to change any financials unless it was to lighten the load, because that is all they have ownership-wise. They only have the Yankees. They don't own anything else and have no other income. So this hit was huge for them, and I think it comes down more to that than it does just trying to win games, where as opposed to, like I talked about the Marlins and Padres, their viewership skyrockets, their fandom skyrockets, and they become these dark horses that everyone's so excited to see in 2021. The Phillies already have that fan base. They had fans outside the stadium for free all season. So it was more financial than anything else. So I think that's a great point by Austin.
Certainly was a season with an asterisk next to it. But how do you feel about Klentak if he doesn't get a JT deal done? Same.
That makes the 6-0 trade look like one of the worst trades ever.
One of the worst trades.
Because he looks really good in Miami.
Agreed.
Yeah, like Bryce said, JT's got to be the starting catcher on the Phillies next year. I mean, if he's the best catcher in baseball, and the Phillies didn't even make the playoffs with him on the roster this year, I can't imagine what they're going to be like if JT's not their catcher next year.
You want to talk about bullpen woes? Watch it next year without JT. He was able to have a good relationship with all these guys. He made Aaron Nola again after in 2019 he really fell off. If he has a full season with these guys without all these extending circumstances, especially if he's re-signed and he can become the captain that I don't think Harper ever will be. He was loved in that clubhouse, but nobody does it like a catcher and nobody does it like JT. So I think that he is an absolute must. And I think that all my opinions change what I just said 5 minutes ago if he doesn't get the deal done.
And that's the thing with catchers. Like, they're not, everyone likes to look at offensive production and numbers and all that stuff, but like, it's just as important that they build these great relationships with the starters, with the relievers. They're good defensively. That's why like Yadier Molina is one of the greatest catchers of all time. He knows how to call a game. He has good relationships with all these pitchers on the Cardinals. JT is that kind of breed of catcher, and if they don't re-sign him, that'd be a total tragedy.
Especially because, you don't need the offensive numbers, and a majority of catchers. I mean, Yadier Molina is still having a great season, but he's batting about 220 this season.
I'm okay with it. Like, I'm okay.
Obviously, but if you have JT's bat is still optimal. He was only 15 points on on-base percentage behind Juan Soto, who had the best on-base percentage in all of baseball. So he still gets on base a ton. He still can hit for power, and he's huge because he's also defensively hands down the best catcher in baseball right now.
Right. We're going to move into our stars of the week. I hope you guys are all ready for this one. Because mine is Alvin Kamara. Fantastic run. I think we all saw it. That was like that was probably like the most beast mode-esque run since beast mode. 6 rushes for 58 yards, 13 receptions for 139 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's basically Drew Brees' what do you call those things underneath the arm? he's a safety valve. He's his crutch. He's the only reason Drew Brees is even still considered a starter in this league, because other than that, I don't think he's at any.
Can we talk about how washed Drew Brees looks, how cooked his arm is?
He doesn't throw the ball past 5 yards. It's great.
No.
I'm going to backtrack. I think I would take Wentz over Drew Brees right now.
Yeah, I would too.
Absolutely. But I think he showed a little bit something better last night. He just got outdueled by Aaron Rodgers, who was just on the biggest FU tour I've seen in a while after they drafted in the first round. So I still think that Drew Brees and his game plan, when Michael Thomas comes back and he could just have 15 catches under the 5-yard line, it's going to be huge for him.
Yeah, my star of the week is Justin Jefferson. I mean, he showed why the Eagles should have drafted him. He had 7 receptions for 175 yards and a touchdown. Did everything the Eagles needed, and obviously we don't have him. But I don't know. Our luck, he'd be on the Eagles. He'd probably be hurt right now or something, though. But big mistake by Howie.
My stars, I guess, I'm going to do one whole collective. The Miami Marlins. They have no – here's the funny thing with them. They made the playoffs 2 times before now in their entire history, and they've won the World Series each of those 2 times. The last time they made the playoffs was 2003. Like, that's some like MVP baseball year or whatever. Just in there, no superstars. I mean, Brian Anderson, I guess, is their best player, but it's just a whole.
Starling Marte, give him some love.
Okay, Starling Marte, a whole ragtag team of nobody really believed in them. So credit to them, credit to Don Mattingly, credit to Derek Jeter. He's the owner there. A lot of success with him. So my stars of the week, Miami Marlins. I hope they beat the Cubs because I hate the Cubs, but I'll be rooting for them other than the Cardinals, of course.
That's cheating, by the way. That's cheating.
That is cheating. I'm gonna just say 2 points about that really quick, then I'll go into mine. 175 transaction moves the Marlins made this entire season in 2 months, which is wild. And they've never won the division, but they've never lost a series, like you said. It's huge. My star of the week, just another baseball player you should know that you probably don't. Bullpen pitcher for the Brewers who just made the playoffs, Devin Williams. He has the best changeup in baseball statistically. He only once this season, it has gotten put in play. He's thrown it 97 times for the regular season. His just overall numbers, his ERA plus is a statistic that the average is 100. His ERA plus is 1,375. He calls it an airbender changeup, and it has a whip of 630, which is the lowest in baseball. He's a rookie, so he's going to be the National League Rookie of the Year and the Reliever of the Year. He is something special. Look him up online.
He is good. He is very good.
That about does it for this week of Sports Talk Philadelphia. Join us next week. We'll talk a little Birds, a little Niners. Hopefully we'll have good things to say. I'm John Kohlmeyer. Thank you guys for watching.